The crystal glasses clinked as I carefully arranged them on the silver serving tray. From the kitchen, I could hear the laughter and conversation flowing from our family's grand dining room, where 40 of Boston's elite gathered to celebrate my mother's 60th birthday. "James, we need more champagne for table 3. My brother Michael called out, not bothering to enter the kitchen. He never did anymore. Not since he'd been made CEO of Harrison Properties 5 years ago. "Coming right up," I replied, maintaining my calm demeanor as I loaded the expensive bottles onto the tray. $600 per bottle, and they'd already gone through 2 cases. I knew because I'd signed off on the purchase order last week, though none of them knew that. My mother's voice carried from the dining room. "Michael has done such amazing things with the company. The Harrison Tower project downtown is going to transform the skyline." I had to suppress a smile. The Harrison Tower project had been my idea 3 years ago, carefully planted through third parties and shell companies. Michael had simply been smart enough to recognize a good opportunity when it was presented to him, or rather, when it was handed to him on a silver platter, much like the champagne I was now carrying. "James, stop dawdling and get out here," my sister Catherine snapped as she breezed through the kitchen doors in her designer dress. "Honestly, if you're going to insist on playing servant, at least be efficient about it." I nodded politely. "Of course, Kathy, my apologies." She rolled her eyes. "It's Catherine now, and for God's sake, at least put on a proper serving jacket. You look like you just walked in off the street." My simple black suit was actually worth more than her entire wardrobe, but she'd never know that. Just like she'd never noticed that I'd been the one paying for her monthly spa treatments for the past 2 years. The same treatments she claimed were business expenses on the company accounts. I followed her out into the dining room, where Boston's finest were enjoying their $300 per plate dinner in what they all assumed was still the Harrison family's ancestral home. The same home I'd quietly purchased through my holding company, when my father's gambling debts had forced a quick private sale 3 years ago. The property manager's call would be coming in exactly 12 minutes. I'd timed everything perfectly. "Ladies and gentlemen," my father stood tapping his glass. "I'd like to propose a toast to my beautiful wife Margaret on her 60th birthday." I watched as he swayed slightly. 4 glasses of champagne and right on schedule. He'd become predictable that way since losing control of the company to Michael. Though technically he hadn't lost control to Michael at all. He'd lost it to me, through a series of quiet acquisitions and proxy votes. Michael was CEO in name only, a fact he'd discover in approximately 11 minutes. "And of course," my father continued, "a special recognition to my son Michael, who has taken Harrison Properties to heights I never dreamed possible. The Harrison Tower will be our legacy." More like my legacy, I thought, but kept my face neutral as I poured champagne for Mr. Davidson, our family's longtime attorney. He gave me a dismissive glance, not recognizing me as the same person who'd met with him last week to finalize the paperwork for the company restructuring. "James," my mother called out, her voice carrying that familiar tone of disappointment. "We need more appetizers for Mrs. Blackwood's table." "Right away, mother." As I headed back to the kitchen, I heard Michael telling everyone about his latest acquisition, a luxury apartment complex downtown. I had to admire his confidence, considering he'd never actually seen the paperwork for that deal. Because there wasn't any. The whole thing was a fiction I'd created to test how far he'd go in taking credit for things he hadn't done. Pretty far, as it turned out. 7 minutes now. I checked my phone discreetly. Everything was in place. The property manager, the security team, the documentation. 5 years of careful planning was about to culminate in the next few minutes. "James," Catherine's voice again. "Stop checking your phone and do your job." I slipped the phone back into my pocket. "Sorry, just checking the time." "The time?" she scoffed. "Why, do you have somewhere more important to be?" "Actually, yes," I said quietly, but she was already walking away. 4 minutes. I thought back to the day this all began. 5 years ago, when my father had gathered the family to announce his retirement. I'd just finished my MBA at Harvard, graduating top of my class. But instead of considering me for a position in the company, they'd all agreed Michael was the natural choice to take over. "James is too soft," my father had said. "He doesn't have the killer instinct this business needs." They'd given me a minor position in accounts payable, expecting me to quietly fade into the background. Instead, I'd use that position to learn every detail of the company's operations, every weakness in their security, every flaw in their financial planning. 2 minutes. I watched as Michael stood again, this time to announce his vision for the company's future. The same vision I'd outlined in a proposal they'd rejected 3 years ago. Now he was presenting it as his own. To thunderous applause. 1 minute. My phone vibrated. Right on schedule. The property manager's name flashed on the screen as I answered, putting it on speaker just loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. Mr. Harrison, yes, Thomas, I have those documents you requested regarding the property ownership and tenant agreements. Should I proceed with informing the current occupants about the 30-day notice? The room gradually fell silent, as people began to notice the conversation. James, my father snapped, take that call outside. This is your mother's birthday party. I smiled for the first time that evening. Actually, father, I think everyone should hear this. Thomas, please go ahead and confirm who exactly owns this property. According to all legal documents, the entire estate is owned by Phoenix Holdings, with you, James Harrison, as the sole shareholder. This includes the main house, the guest house, and all surrounding properties. Would you like me to proceed with the eviction notices for the current occupants? The champagne glass in Michael's hand crashed to the floor. This is ridiculous. My father sputtered. This is our family home. Not anymore, I said calmly. It hasn't been for 3 years. Not since you sold it to cover your gambling debts. I sold it to a private investor. He shouted. Yes, I nodded. You did. Phoenix Holdings, my company. The room had gone completely silent now. 40 of Boston's elite watched as 5 years of carefully constructed facades began to crumble. Thomas, I continued, please hold off on those notices for now. But do send over the other documentation we discussed. You mean the Harrison Properties ownership records? What? Michael stood so quickly his chair toppled backward. Yes, those records, I confirmed. The ones showing Phoenix Holdings controlling interest in Harrison Properties, including the Harrison Tower project and all subsequent acquisitions. Catherine's face had gone pale. That's impossible. Michael runs the company. Michael runs nothing, I said quietly. He's been a figurehead for the past 3 years. Every major decision, every acquisition, every project, it all went through me, through shell companies and holding corporations. None of you bothered to investigate. You're lying, my father growled. My phone pinged with an incoming email. Those would be the documents now, I said, opening my laptop and connecting it to the dining room's projector system. Shall we review them together? I'm sure Mr. Davidson can confirm their authenticity, considering he handled the paperwork himself last week. The attorney's face went ashen as the documents appeared on the screen. Property deeds, company ownership records, board meeting minutes, 5 years of careful planning, laid bare for all to see. While we're at it, I continued, perhaps we should discuss some other interesting documents, like the records of Michael's embezzlement through fake development projects, or Catherine's creative accounting with her spa treatments, or most importantly, Father's gambling debts that he's been paying off with company funds. You wouldn't dare, my mother whispered. We're family. Family. I turned to her. Was it family when you made me work in the mailroom despite my MBA? Was it family when you excluded me from board meetings? Was it family when you let Michael take credit for my ideas while treating me like a servant? I stood up straight, adjusting my simple black suit, the one Catherine had so recently mocked. Thomas, please proceed with the ownership announcements to all relevant parties, and send security up. I believe some of our guests may need assistance finding their way out. Right away, Mr. Harrison. As if on cue, the dining room doors opened, and 4 security guards entered. Professional, discreet, and very well paid by Phoenix Holdings. This party is over, I announced to the shocked guests. Though I must say, I've rather enjoyed serving all of you one last time. The next hour was a blur of activity. As guests hurriedly made their exits, security collected company phones and laptops from my family members, and Mr. Davidson verified every document I presented. By midnight the house was empty, except for my family, still sitting in stunned silence at the dining room table. Why? My mother finally asked. Why go through all this deception? Why not just tell us? Would you have listened? I asked quietly. Would you have believed that your soft son could build something like this? Or would you have tried to take it away, just like you took away every other opportunity I ever had? No one answered. They knew I was right. You have choices to make now, I continued. You can fight this, try to challenge my ownership in court, but Mr. Davidson will confirm that everything I've done is completely legal. Or you can accept the new reality and work with me to rebuild this company the right way. And if we don't, Michael challenged, though his voice lacked its usual confidence, then you'll all receive generous severance packages and best wishes for your future endeavors. But you'll do it without the Harrison name, without the company resources, and without this house. I stood up, straightening my jacket one last time. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. The security team will help you pack any personal belongings you wish to take tonight. Everything else can be arranged after you've made your decisions. As I walked toward the door, my father's voice stopped me. James, I turned. The Harrison Tower project. That was really your idea. Everything was my idea, Father. Everything for the past 5 years. You just never bothered to notice. I left them there, sitting in what had once been their dining room, now mine. As I walked out into the cool Boston night, I couldn't help but smile. 5 years of serving drinks, taking orders and being dismissed, had led to this moment. Tomorrow they would all have to decide whether to accept my terms or walk away. But tonight, for the first time in my life, I was finally being seen for who I really was, the real owner of the Harrison legacy. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my penthouse office atop the Harrison building. Not the Harrison Tower, that was still under construction, but the original family building, where I'd started in the mailroom 5 years ago. My phone buzzed. Thomas, the property manager. They're here, Mr. Harrison. All of them? Yes, sir. Even your mother. I checked my watch. 7:58 a.m. 2 minutes early. Desperation had made them punctual. Send them up. While waiting, I reviewed the documents spread across my desk. Resignation letters for those who'd choose to leave, new contracts for those who'd stay, and detailed files documenting every questionable decision they'd made over the past 5 years. The elevator dinged. My family filed in, looking considerably less polished than at last night's party. Michael's usual perfectly pressed suit was wrinkled. Catherine's designer outfit had been replaced by simple business wear. My father's hands trembled slightly. Withdrawal from his usual morning cocktail, no doubt. And my mother, she looked older somehow, as if the night had aged her a decade. Please sit. I gestured to the chairs arranged before my desk. They sat. No one spoke. I assume you've had time to consider your options, I began, keeping my voice neutral. Before you decide, there are some things you should know. I opened the first file. Michael, in the past 3 years, you've embezzled approximately $2.7 million through fake development projects. The Hampton Resort proposal, the Miami Beach expansion, shell companies that led directly back to your personal accounts. Michael's face went white. Catherine, your creative accounting goes beyond spa treatments. The charitable donations to the Harrison Foundation, that private foundation you created, channels 80% of its funds into your offshore account in the Caymans. She didn't meet my eyes. And Father, I paused, letting the tension build. Would you like to tell them about the real reason you stepped down 5 years ago? About the $12 million in company funds you used to cover gambling debts? You can't prove any of this. Michael suddenly burst out. I smiled slightly. I can prove all of it. Remember who's been running the accounting department for the past 5 years? Who designed the new financial tracking system? Who had access to every transaction, every document, every email? You were spying on us? Catherine's voice shook. No, I was protecting myself and the company. I knew this day would come, when you'd all have to face what you've done. I just wanted to ensure there would be no doubt about the truth. What do you want? My father finally spoke. What I've always wanted, to run this company properly, to build something lasting, to create a legacy that's about more than personal greed and family politics. I opened another file. Here are your options. Option 1. You resign. You receive severance packages, generous enough to maintain comfortable, though not extravagant, lifestyles. In exchange, you sign non-disclosure agreements and agree to never contest my ownership or management of Harrison Properties. And option 2, my mother asked quietly. You stay, but under new terms. I pulled out the contracts. Michael, you'd move to our Seattle office, Vice President of Regional Development. A real job, with real responsibilities. No more fake projects. He started to protest, but I continued. Catherine, you have a law degree you've never used. Our legal department needs restructuring. You'd start as associate counsel, working under our new head of legal affairs. A demotion, she sputtered. A chance to do honest work, I corrected. And father, he looked up. You need help, real help. The contract includes a provision for rehabilitation. 6 months at the facility of your choice, fully covered. When you return, there's a position as senior advisor waiting. No financial control, but your experience could still be valuable. And me? My mother's voice was barely a whisper. I softened slightly. The charitable foundation needs a real director, someone who understands Boston society and can build genuine community relationships. The position is yours, if you want it, but it would be a real foundation this time, helping real people. Silence fell over the office. Outside, construction crews were already starting work on the Harrison Tower. The sound of progress, of change, filtered through the windows. Why give us any choice at all? Michael finally asked. Why not just fire us and press charges? Because despite everything, you're still family. And because I believe people can change, when given the right motivation and opportunity. And if we refuse both options, Catherine challenged. I closed the files deliberately. Then I release everything, every document, every transaction, every detail, to the board, to the shareholders, to the SEC. Your reputations, your futures, your freedom, all gone. You destroy the family name. My mother gasped. I've spent 5 years building something bigger than our family name, I replied. The question is whether you want to be part of it or not. More silence. Then my father stood up shakily. I'll take the rehabilitation option. One by one, they made their choices. Michael chose Seattle, his arrogance finally tempered by fear. Catherine accepted the legal position, her ambition redirecting toward legitimate achievements. My mother, after a long pause, agreed to run the foundation. You'll all receive detailed briefs about your new positions, I said, gathering the signed contracts. Take the rest of the week to get your affairs in order, and I suggest you use this time to think about how we move forward as a family.
Oh,
They stood to leave, but my mother lingered. James? Yes? Last night, at my party, was any of it real? The serving, the quiet compliance. Was it all just an act? I considered her question carefully. The service was real. The submission wasn't. I learned more about this company carrying drinks than Michael ever did sitting in the CEO's office. I saw who made the real decisions, who kept the secrets, who actually did the work. And what did you learn about me? That you were so focused on maintaining appearances, you never saw what was real, even your own son. She nodded slowly, tears in her eyes. I hope I can learn to see better. That's why I gave you the foundation, I said quietly. It's a chance to see people for who they really are, not what they appear to be. After she left, I stood at the window, watching the Harrison Tower construction. 5 years of careful planning had led to this moment, but the real work was just beginning. My phone buzzed again. Thomas, sir, the board members are arriving for the emergency meeting. Thank you, Thomas. Let's show them what the real future of Harrison Properties looks like. I straightened my suit, the same simple black one from last night, but now its understated elegance carried a different message. Not of servitude, but of choice, of power worn lightly, but carried with purpose. Time to build something new. 3 months after the takeover, I sat in my office reviewing the quarterly reports. The changes had been dramatic but surprisingly smooth, a testament to how well I'd prepared over the years. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Sarah, my executive assistant, entered with a stack of files. The latest reports from Seattle, sir, and your brother's here. I raised an eyebrow. Michael wasn't due to report in person for another week. Send him in. Michael entered, looking different from the polished executive he'd been 3 months ago. His hair was slightly disheveled, his tie loosened, but there was something else different too. A clarity in his eyes I hadn't seen before. "James," he said, taking a seat without waiting for an invitation. "Some habits died hard. We need to talk about the Anderson Project." The Anderson Project was his first real assignment in Seattle, a mixed-use development I'd purposely chosen for its complexity. "Problems? No," he said, spreading out papers on my desk. "Opportunities. But I need your approval to pursue them." I watched as he walked me through his proposal. It was solid work, actually solid, not the smoke and mirrors he'd previously relied on. He'd identified genuine inefficiencies in the original plan and found ways to create additional value. "When did you figure it out?" he asked suddenly, interrupting his own presentation. "Figure what out?" "That I had no idea what I was doing as CEO. I leaned back in my chair. "About 4 years ago, when you approved the Richardson deal without reading the environmental impact report." He winced. "The toxic waste cleanup, which I'd already arranged financing for through a subsidiary, knowing you'd miss it." Michael was quiet for a moment. "You could have let me fail. Let the company take the hit." "Why protect me?" "Because I was protecting the company. And despite everything, you're still my brother." He nodded slowly. "The Anderson Project, this is the first real work I've done in years. Actually doing the research, understanding the numbers, seeing how all the pieces fit together. And I hate that I'm enjoying it." He laughed bitterly. "I hate that you were right, that I needed this demotion, reassignment, whatever you want to call it." I picked up his proposal. "This is good work, Michael. Really good. Submit it through proper channels, and if the numbers check out, you'll get your approval. No shortcuts. No shortcuts." As he stood to leave, he paused. "Have you heard from Catherine? She's doing well in legal. Apparently she's becoming quite the expert in regulatory compliance." Ironic. Appropriate, I corrected. Who better to protect us from fraud than someone who knows all the tricks? After Michael left, I received another unexpected visitor. Mr. Davidson, our family's longtime attorney, now head of our expanded legal department. "Mr. Harrison," he said formally, though I could see the respect in his eyes that hadn't been there 3 months ago. "The board asked me to bring you something." He placed a framed newspaper article on my desk. It was from that morning's Wall Street Journal. "Harrison Properties announces major affordable housing initiative." The article detailed our new project, converting some of our luxury developments into mixed-income communities. It was the kind of project my family would have dismissed as unprofitable 3 months ago. "The board is impressed," Davidson said. "Revenue is up 23% this quarter, despite the increased community investment. They're calling it the Harrison Renaissance." Any word from my father? Davidson's expression softened. "He's doing well in rehabilitation. His doctors say he's making real progress." I nodded, trying to maintain professional detachment. But the truth was, I'd been monitoring father's progress closely. The reports were encouraging. He was finally facing his demons. And my mother's foundation. "That's actually why I'm here." Davidson handed me another file. "The new youth center project. It's already oversubscribed. Local businesses are lining up to partner with us. Your mother, she's found her calling." I allowed myself a small smile. The foundation had been a gamble, giving her real responsibility, rather than just a ceremonial role. But she'd surprised everyone, channeling her social networking skills into actual community building. My phone buzzed. A text from Catherine. "Need your eyes on this contract. Something doesn't feel right." Progress. 3 months ago, she would have hidden any concerns, worried about appearing weak. Now she was learning to ask for help, to prioritize doing things right over looking right. As evening fell, I walked through the office, something I did regularly now, not secretly, like before, but openly, talking with employees, listening to concerns, gathering the kind of intelligence that could never be found in reports and spreadsheets. I passed the wall where our company mission statement hung. The old one had been full of corporate jargon about market dominance and shareholder value. The new one was simpler: building more than buildings. In the elevator down to the parking garage, I found myself thinking about that night 3 months ago. My mother's birthday party, the revelations, the choices that followed. It had been satisfying, yes, but satisfaction wasn't the goal. The goal was transformation. Of the company, of my family, of myself. My phone buzzed again. A group text from my mother. Family dinner this Sunday. The Foundation's Youth Center chef wants to test some recipes. I looked at the responses trickling in. Michael. Flying in Saturday. I'm in. Catherine. Only if James promises not to make me serve drinks. Father who'd earned phone privileges at the rehabilitation center. Count me in. Proud of you all. I texted back, I'll be there. As I drove home, I passed the Harrison Tower construction site. The building was taking shape now, reaching toward the sky. But unlike before, it wasn't just a monument to our family's wealth and power. It would include affordable housing units, community spaces, green technology, a symbol of what business could be when profit and purpose aligned. The security guard at my building nodded as I entered. Good evening, Mr. Harrison. Good evening, Thomas. He smiled at the familiar exchange, remembering that night 3 months ago, when he'd helped set everything in motion. In my penthouse, I poured a single glass of the same champagne we'd served at Mother's party. But this time, I wasn't serving it, I was enjoying it, celebrating quietly by myself. My phone buzzed one last time. An email from the board. Quarterly review tomorrow. Expectation. Explain the Harrison Renaissance. Question. What's next? I smiled, already knowing my answer. The Harrison Renaissance wasn't about restoring our family to its former glory. It was about building something entirely new. A company that served more than just itself. A family that was more than just its name. And we were just getting started. 1 year to the day after my mother's fateful birthday party, I stood at the podium in front of the newly completed Harrison Tower. The crowd gathered for the opening ceremony included city officials, community leaders, and yes, my family. Michael sat in the front row, looking focused and professional. Seattle had changed him for the better. Next to him, Catherine, who'd recently been promoted to Deputy General Counsel, after uncovering and preventing a major potential lawsuit. My mother now, a respected figure in Boston's nonprofit community, sat holding hands with my father, 6 months sober, and actually smiling. The Harrison Tower, I began, was never meant to be just another building. It's a blueprint for the future. I gestured to the gleaming structure behind me. The top floors house our corporate offices and luxury apartments, yes. But walk through the public plaza, and you'll find affordable housing units, a community center, green spaces, and local businesses. This isn't just a building, it's a community. The applause was genuine, especially from the resident representatives, who'd been part of the planning process. 1 year ago, Harrison Properties underwent its own transformation. Some called it a takeover, others called it a renaissance. I call it a reminder. I paused, meeting each family member's eyes. A reminder that true success isn't measured by how high we build our towers, but by how many people we lift up along the way. The ceremony continued with ribbon cuttings and tours, but the real celebration came later that evening, in a quiet restaurant, not the fancy venues we used to frequent, but a family-owned place in one of our redeveloped neighborhoods. We gathered for dinner. Hard to believe it's been a year, Michael said, passing the bread basket. Remember how angry I was that first month in Seattle? You sent me 15 angry emails the first week alone. I replied, smiling. Now he sends 15 excited emails about actual projects, Catherine added. Almost missed the old Michael, almost. My father cleared his throat. I owe you all an apology, especially you, James. I was so wrapped up in maintaining control. I nearly destroyed everything we built. We're building something better now, my mother said softly. The youth center is hosting its first graduation ceremony next week. Kids who never thought they'd have a chance. I watched them talk, noting how different they were from the family that had gathered for last year's birthday party. The pretense was gone, replaced by something real. My phone buzzed, a message from Thomas. Final inspection complete. All residential units ready for move-in. A toast, I proposed, raising my glass. To the Harrison legacy. To doing the work, Michael added. To asking for help, Catherine chimed in. To second chances, my father said quietly. To seeing what's real, my mother finished. Later that night, I stood in my office in the Harrison Tower, looking out over the city. The lights below told different stories now, not just of wealth and power, but of communities coming together, of lives being changed. On my desk sat a frame, not holding awards or stock certificates, but a simple photograph taken at the youth center. My mother teaching a business class to teenage entrepreneurs, Michael mentoring a group of aspiring developers, Catherine helping students understand their legal rights, my father sharing his story of recovery with families who needed to hear it, and me in the background, watching it all unfold. The security system beeped. Thomas, making his final rounds. Everything secure, Mr. Harrison? I thought about that question, about security, about legacy, about what it means to build something that lasts. Yes, Thomas, everything is exactly as it should be. He nodded, understanding more than just the literal meaning. As I prepared to leave for the night, I took one last look at the city below. Somewhere out there, families were moving into affordable homes we'd built. Small businesses were thriving in spaces we'd developed. Communities were growing stronger, because we'd chosen to build more than just buildings. The Harrison name meant something different now, something better, and that was worth more than all the towers in the world. The end.